Coming up, Twiggy Turbo gets snapped in half by the new cats on the block. The women's game has a Jerry Maguire moment. And the Catalan Dragons scorch the Wigan Warriors with a donut. Yes, hello, and welcome to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcells, and today it's your NRLW Round 3-4 and NRL Round 1 and 2 debrief. But before we jump into the men's, we'll jump into the women's, starting off with the Round 3 wrap. The Sydney Roosters finally did something.
They finally did. They looked much improved compared to rounds 1 and 2 against Newcastle, and they came up with a win. Finally.
After getting smacked around by the Broncos, then getting smacked around by the Titans in the following week, so bad enough they lost to both Queensland sides. No, they finally came good, and they really stretched the Knights' defence on this, running out 28-12 winners.
They certainly did, and that's what I was expecting to see from the Roosters back in round 1 against Brisbane. But they also had done it, and now they finally do it. But in saying that, the Knights weren't quite themselves of what they had shown in rounds 1 and 2.
Well, to be fair, they showed fight against Brisbane, just they got run over the top.
True.
So here they had a fresh opportunity against a fellow side that was 0-2 and didn't really convert. I mean, they had their chances, but I got to tell you, the Roosters' start just said nope to that.
Pretty much, the start to the game pretty much sets the tone to the game, and that's exactly what happened with the Roosters here. They started off strong, and they pretty much took control of the match from start to finish.
I got to say, the left edge of the Roosters, particularly, and this was my standout for the Roosters on this day, Isabel Kelly. Of course, all the talk, as we've said before, all the talk with Jess Surgis defecting from St. George or Illawarra. Don't know why she would at this point, but alas, did. But Isabel Kelly, the fellow New South Wales centre, 1 try, 2 try assists, 151 running metres, and a single tackle break.
Yeah, she was all over it, Isabel Kelly. She set up, like you said, a try or two. And of course, and scored one herself. So,
also with that work with winger Bridie Parker on the outside as well.
Yeah, so I'd say Sutton's Roosters might make a late charge, but it could be too late as well. There's still a few weeks left to go. Who knows? The Roosters could, 2 weeks left. So, yeah, it's very late. But it's unless they've got a win on the board.
They would need the Dragons to lose big time and hope that Parramatta don't win as well. That's probably what the objectives are for the Roosters at this moment. A Dragons and an Eels loss, because no one's going to be chasing down the Broncos at this point.
Not at this
But I tell you what, Olivia Koenig, she knows how to find a try line.
She certainly does. She was another really brilliant player. She was one of the best in this side, alongside Isabel Kelly as well. She was all over it. Scoring, setting up, running. She was all over it. She's gone really well in I think, her debut season. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
Well, someone will if they're listening.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the thing for the Roosters. They need the Dragons and the Eels to lose if they are a chance of returning to the grand final.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be returning to the grand final this year, unless, like you said, Dragons and Parramatta have massive losses.
But that's the question. Will they or won't they? But other than that, I got to say, Newcastle season's done.
Yeah, well, for the first season, I wasn't expecting them to come out and win the premiership in the first year. It's a building year, you could say. If they snag a win or 2 on the board, that would be quite impressive, but I don't think they would have...
Well, Gold Coast and Parramatta have done that. Newcastle is the only one of the expansion sides that really haven't.
No, they haven't. Maybe they could in round number 4.
Well, we'll see about round 4 as we jump from the newcomers to the veterans. The Brisbane Broncos narrowly getting up over the top of St. George Illawarra, 22 points to 18.
Game of the season. The top 2...
That's really what most of the Dragons-Broncos clashes have been. I got to say, that I know there's only been historically 4, now 6, but really, they're the 2 outstanding ones. I mean, you got the Broncos at the top of the women's pyramid, but then it's St. George Illawarra underneath them.
Yeah. I have to say, well, the top two in this season's ladder at the moment, and the Dragons really did give it to the Broncos, which is
Oh, they dug.
good
Believe me,
sign.
they dug deep.
They certainly did. It's just unfortunate that they couldn't beat them by a try.
You gotta love those back and forth moments. You really do. Everyone loves to see a good try for try contest, and that's what we got right here.
Yeah, hence why I think, not being biased, but it's so far the
Of
game
course,
of the
you
season.
not being biased.
Well, high scoring it was. I was going to say game of the season, it's up there, but I have to say the other game of the season so far had been Parramatta Newcastle in round one. That was a very close game as well.
That was game of the round. I'll give you that. That was game of the round.
That was game of the round. But I think it might be up there for game of the year alongside this Dragons Broncos. But that's my opinion. But argue with me all you want.
The errors cost the Dragons, I think, at certain stages, especially with the Ali Brigginshaw try assist that led to a try.
Yeah, that did hurt. That was an error that the Dragons really didn't need, and I'd say that might have cost them the match. But coming up against the top side, you can't be. You have to be at the best on top of your game as much as possible. And the Dragons Weber just made that one small error, which might have probably cost them.
I believe this the Taron Aiken try. I believe this was. I was trying to think of which try it was because, like I said, errors. Not just that one, but the opening try as well. To Talisha Harden.
Yes.
Where was that discipline?
I don't know. Wasn't there.
Can't afford to do that. But I tell you what, bloody hell. How many big hits? How many big hits? I feel like there were sore ribs and breasts after some of those hits because they were getting rattled so much.
I'd say so. Two of them, I believe, was to...
Talia Fui Mayono.
Bloody hell. I wonder where she gets it from.
Well, not the boyfriend.
No.
That's what he gets.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the brother that does most of the damage.
Yeah, but except his brother usually gets into trouble a bit more often. But anyway, let's not go there. No, but Phil and Mayono,
family things.
she was an absolute weapon. Like, far out. She was.
Some of the girls she was hitting, they're not exactly midgets. They're
some of them
big.
were like second rowers and front rowers.
lock forwards, taking on the small women on big women. It's the same analogy we use about the small man taking on the big man, and we'll get onto that very, very shortly. But we still got a couple of things to look at. You would have thought with Elsie Albert going over, and she's been very impressive for the Dragons as well.
She certainly has been. She was impressive in this match too. Come up with a try,
Yep.
I believe. Yep. And she put on
With 10 minutes to go.
And she put on a couple of decent hits herself. So
But
it was a good defensive and attacking
at the
performance.
end of the day, the Broncos just managed to find that little bit of room to breathe, and they took it.
Yeah, but I'm not disappointed about the result. Well, I am, but not a lot, because we did put up a stellar performance there from Brisbane by the Dragons up against.
I still think you're going to make the grand final at this rate. I mean, personally, from what I'm seeing right now, Broncos are a lot for the grand final. But I think St. George Illawarra are really solidifying their place at this stage, I would have to say.
Yeah, look, with only 2 weeks to go, it's like you said, Brisbane are definitely locked in. They're in a league of their own. Second, I have to agree, it's kind of going to be, at the moment, is the Dragons, but who knows what's going to happen. Dragons might slip off the last two games. I hope they certainly don't. But only time will tell. It's only 2 weeks left.
Well, one team that could realistically throw a spanner into the works, it is the Parramatta Eels. After downing the Gold Coast Titans 24-14, they are only one of the new girls, 2-1.
They certainly are, yes.
So they're breathing down
Newcastle's
the Dragons' neck in third at this rate.
Yeah. Well, Newcastle's 9-3. Gold Coast on 1-1.
1-2 now.
1-2 now. And then Eels are
2-1.
2-1. So it's a good sign. Like, they have had their moments, Parramatta, but they're getting on quite well. They're starting to get combinations right quicker than what Gold Coast and Newcastle have.
The Bo Vetti Welsh and Tiana Penatani, and I'm just going to say, at the top. I think Penatani had a standout game for the Eels. 162 running meters, 2 try assists, 2 tackle breaks, and 3 offloads. And really, regardless of whether it's the men or the women, it was a vintage Parramatta performance at CommBank Stadium.
It certainly was. So whatever the men have at CommBank Stadium, the women have got it as well.
What's in the water over at Parramatta? Honestly, I really want to know what's in the water over there whenever the Eels come to play at CommBank, because the Eels women now, of course, only one game, but they now have a 100% win record there, whilst the men have something in the high 70 win percentage there.
Yeah, they certainly do. So I don't know what's in the Parramatta River, but it's something.
Well, floodwater. I think at the moment it's floodwater.
Well, yeah.
But other than that, and maybe a couple of other things that we're not going to talk about because it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, there's something in the water over there at CommBank that they love playing there, and they get good results out of it.
Well, they have got
7 times out of 10, I think.
Well, they've got like the best stadium in the league. Well, one of the best. Well, arguably, it's got a second newest in the league. So, and the atmosphere. I've never been to CommBank, but even just seeing it on TV, the atmosphere is always electric.
Pun intended.
Yeah, all right, pun intended. I was going to say no, but pun intended. But it's always electric there when Parramatta up there, so it might be just a home ground advantage, really.
Well, home ground advantage or not, that even when the Titans started to throw punches, not what we think of throwing punches, although we would rather like to see a little bit of that here and there. Always good to have a bit of a biff and moderation. But Destiny Brill, this young teenager from the Titans, really tried to make a point of difference out here.
She certainly did. Good to see that young teenagers coming through.
Definitely. I think they said only 23 she was? Or was that Romy Teitzel for Newcastle?
Yeah, that was Romy Teitzel for Newcastle.
Regardless of this, 9 runs, 103 running meters, a line break for a lock 4, that's usually unheard of, a line break, 11 tackle breaks. And I bet you, just 1 offload I think it is. Nope, none. But still, 11 double-digit tackle breaks. How's that not a tackle-busting machine right there?
Well, it is. And for a teenager, I don't know, I think it's her first season as well. I could be wrong. But that's a mighty performance there. And that will build her confidence up as well.
It definitely would. But really, the Eels need to work on their middle or ruck discipline, because they let Brill go in, and there was like 3 Eels hanging off her at one stage. Then the veteran Steph Hancock, who scored the Titans' opening try after the blitz.
Yes.
They just can't afford to do that.
No, they can't. They have somewhat improved since round 1, and they're only going to improve as the season gets on. I have to say, poor Maddie Stubbing goal kicking. Burst in Newcastle where she had to get, had trouble keeping the ball on the tee. This time, in 3 attempts, in 3 separate attempts, 1 hit the crossbar, 1 hit the left upright, 1 hit the right upright. It's like, for God's sake, give her some help, for crying out loud.
You would have thought she didn't have any problems with the wind, because there's not really a chance for a breeze up at CommBank.
Not really, no.
But there still is impact nevertheless.
Yeah. But I was like, wow, really? She can't get a break at the moment, but she still got there. She had a crack, and they were so close, but didn't quite work out.
It didn't, but always room for improvement.
Oh, yes.
And now jumping in gears, moving on from round 3 up to round 4. Another standalone fixture on Saturday, the Gold Coast Titans at home for the first time against the Brisbane Broncos. All right, so here we go. Southeast Queensland Derby. How about that to open up round 4 of the NRLW?
Yeah, look, this will be a good game to watch. I mean, an experienced club like Brisbane coming up against the newcomers, the Gold Coast Titans. It's a derby. Form does in a way help, but it does in another way too. Like in derbies, form goes kind of out the window. Just look at the Rabbitohs and Bulldogs
Usually.
and the Mets over the years.
Usually form goes out the window.
Usually, yes.
But in most cases, you're right. Gold Coast had to have been forced into a couple of changes. Of course, the fact that Tasman Gray has been suspended for alleged crusher tackle. I think someone might be wanting to really stipulate or push the point of allegedly a crusher tackle on Bo Betty Welsh.
Tackle?
Also, she is out with Shania Power to start in the second row, whilst Brianna Clark will return in the front row, with April Ngata-Puna shifting to the reserves. Otherwise, Gold Coast unchanged.
Brisbane. This might work in Gold Coast's favour. Tameka Upton is out of the side altogether due to a head knock, and she has been replaced by Hayley Maddock at fullback. With Maddock's utility spot on the bench, Jada Ferguson has come on the bench, while Caitlin Phillips has been included in the 17 as she looks to come back from a knee injury.
Well, now that's the question for the Titans now, because they're looking at back-to-back losses, to say right off the top, but they have been competitive in all three games they have played.
They certainly have been.
They could have gone either way against the Dragons. They got that win over the Roosters, and again with the Eels, the final 10 minutes, they just let that slip.
Yeah.
From 14 all.
Yeah. But this game, without Tameka Upton, we know how Tameka Upton has played for the Brisbane Broncos over the years. That's a massive blow for Brisbane.
It could be, but at the same time, the Broncos NRLW side is basically like the Melbourne Storm in the NRL. Someone's just going to keep on coming off that production line, and the Broncos are just like, okay, so we're a girl down, but whatever. We'll still blow you off the park.
Yeah, that's a good point you make there, and it is 100% true.
I'm backing the Broncos in 7-12. I don't think they're really going to blow the Titans off the park, especially with some of that forward power they got. But at the same time, I don't see Gold Coast really challenging the Broncos on the edges.
That's a fair call there. I'm actually going to go Gold Coast 1-6.
So you're calling for an upset, but the Broncos will finally lose a game.
They've been undefeated since the first season. They might have had one or two losses here and there.
Well, we can go back over that now, because so far they're into the season 3-0. 2018, 4-0. There, so that was the first year. One loss, and that was to the Warriors.
That's right.
It was in 2019. But barring that, one loss in 5 years.
Pretty much.
So that's a 99% winning record right there.
Pretty much. But I'll say Gold Coast are going to make Brisbane have their second loss in the club's history and win 1-6.
Well, either side of the argument right there, but we'll see how that pans out when all's said and done. You can catch that from 10-1 on Saturday on KO and Fox League. Now, moving on to the doubleheader. The Parramatta Eels versus the Sydney Roosters in part one under the doubleheader at Newcastle, and they have had some big ins over the course of the announcement. And it's Rakea Horn, Nita Maynard, and Serena Onea-Toka. Hopefully I got that right again. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
It is a bit of a tongue twister.
All been named and included. The latter, Nea Toka on the bench alongside Abby Church and Shirley Malangi, with Emily Curtin, who started at 5'8" in the absence, retains her position. And as for Farid Isaitan, 25 stitches and shifted to the extended reserves.
Yeah, that's a bit
in the changes for Dean Witter's Eels.
Yes. That's got to help 25 stitches. For the Roosters, Bridie Parker, after scoring a try and setting up one, is out. She's been replaced by Taylor Mapusa. After she's recovering from a cut near her eye in round one. Zahara Tamara, she's into the halves alongside Racine McGregor, with Jocelyn Kelleher moving to the bench.
I think that's just selling.
Sorry?
You said Jocelyn. You made us sound like
Joseph.
a man.
Sorry.
How does that feel, knowing
Sorry.
that you...
Oh, I don't know. I don't say the name often. Sorry.
See, this is why we keep you in the back freezer. When I don't feel like putting you in the concrete boots and sending you for a swim, this is where you stay for 7 days. You do these stints. I find it very distressing, and you're really running up the power bill that I have to keep, like, say 6 foot, under 100 kilo guy in the fridge, in the freezer, because he says stuff like this. I don't know what to do with him. I should just probably fire you and find somebody else, but times are tough at the moment for small-time podcasters.
Yeah. And otherwise, it's unchanged with Economist coming onto the bench for Kapani.
Well, Roosters heading
They finally got a win.
a vein of form, but you can't leave out Parramatta on this occasion.
Well, no, you certainly can't. And we know what Parramatta have been doing all season. They've actually been a better side than what the Roosters have
Defensive record is pretty solid. I mean, like 2 tries round 1, 1 try round 2, and then another 3. So that's like 6 tries, an average of 2 already. I mean, in contrast to other defensive efforts, including the Roosters, is where they've probably conceded more than 8 tries already. That's good going.
Yeah, that's good going. But I have to say, with the loss of Brody, I've done it again. Brodie Parker.
The freezer door's right there, so just be careful.
Brodie Parker, that's a big loss for the Roosters. They finally got something going on, and then a big name like her is gone.
Penatani versus Surges. This is going to be an interesting battle here.
It would be.
I am very curious, but I think the combination with Vetty Welsh and Stutton, I think this could really guide the Eels over the line.
I'd say it would.
And, I mean, the Roosters might try and shift the ball, but I think Parramatta are looking for a better defensive performance here.
I have to agree there. Parramatta, their defence has been up there all season.
They've been engaging, but sort of soft around the ruck.
Yeah, they have had their few their few things slip. But I have to say, Eels are going to win this one 7-12.
So you're going Para 7-12?
Para 7-12.
I'm going to call it closer. I'm going to call it 1-6 the Eels' way. Hey, should be something to look out for. And
yes.
Finally, with round 4, Newcastle up at home against St George Illawarra, with Casey Bromelo naming an unchanged lineup.
As she's done for the majority of the season.
Provided that Nagato Kotoro Arakua beats a dangerous throw charge at the judiciary tonight. So that's a T date she would rather not have.
Yep.
Because I think these guys, they're not here for pleasantries. This is all business.
Yes. As for the Dragons, Jamie Soward has named the return of Kezi Apps, Talihi Holmes, Madison Butler and Cody House after missing last week. Tegan Dimmick is on the bench despite suspected broken hand. Keely Brown, Chantel Tugaga, correct me if I'm wrong, and Alati Mosi and Renee Target are all on the reserves.
This has got to be crunch time for the Dragons right here. As we've already said, Parramatta nipping at their heels. If the Roosters get a win at the weekend as well, so that last game, Eels and the Roosters, that's a key game for the Dragons.
It is.
Because if they can get up over Newcastle, which I think they've got a very strong chance of doing, they can try and lock up a top 2 finish and meet the Broncos in the grand final at this rate.
Look, the rate the Dragons have been playing this season, that could be the case. But Newcastle, they are improving as well. They could cause an upset, but I don't think this could be the case against the Dragons. The Dragons have been too strong this season.
Oh, they've been very, very strong. Whether it's Kessie Apps in the middle of the field, Emma Tonagato and the back three of the Dragons, they've never really been challenged.
No.
I mean, cruising 2-1 at the moment. I think they can and they will go to 3-1. I think the Dragons win the 7 points to 12.
Well, the Dragons have got, like, we know what Albert can do with the hits. Fui Mayona, we can know what she can do with the hits. And like I said, bringing back, like, Kezi Apps, Cody House, Madison Bartlett and the likes. That's going to be a good win for the Dragons. I'm going to say Dragons to win. 7-12.
So let me just get your thoughts. Rachel Pearson, and of course promoted with Maddie Studd on defecting to join Parramatta. How have you rated her performance in trying to really succeed Studden at the Dragons?
Her kicking, like her goal kicking game needs a slight improvements. Like she's not 100%, but she's been getting a fair bit of the goals. I think she may need to take control a little bit more. Not much, but a little bit more. But she's been...
And general kicking, you happy with that? Goal and dropouts, not giving away 7 tackle sets wise?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Obviously, it's hard to replace someone like Maddie Studden. But she's making a name for herself in that halfback's role there.
Now, before we jump onto the NRL, I think this is an important point that has to be noted here. The NRLW structure changes, where they are going to introduce a salary cap of $350,000 as for a top 30 side. So that probably averages out maybe, what would you say, no, not $3,000. That doesn't sound about right. Or would it, if my math is right?
So what was it, sorry?
$350,000 salary cap over 30 players.
Like that, about 30. 11,600.
All right, so an average of $10,000.
Yeah.
A bit more than $10,000 each with, and this is the interesting part, only 2 will be full-time contracts.
As I say, marquee players.
For marquee players, so that's a question.
That's going to be hard.
Especially for the big clubs. Who do you think will be the first in line for a marquee contract?
Look, that's so hard to choose, isn't it? I mean, are they going to go for someone experienced like Ali Brigginshaw or Millie Boyle from Brisbane Broncos, or Maddie Studden from
the Eels,
or Jess Surges from the Roosters, or Tamika Upton from the...
I mean, that is the question, though. But that's not all the NRLW is doing. They're not just introducing a salary cap and giving full-time contracts out to the women. They've announced an expansion plan to increase the comp by 2025 to have 10 teams in it.
Yeah.
And already there have been clubs to put their hands up. Of course, South Sydney, who everyone thought would have been included initially for establishing women's pathways up first. And of course, in recent times, the Canberra Raiders and the North Queensland Cowboys have both flagged their interest for an NRLW license. But we also got to keep in mind the Warriors could make a comeback here as well.
They could, but I don't think they will, in all honesty.
4 teams over 2 years being introduced. Are you a little bit worried about what the NRL is planning to do with this at the moment?
Slightly, in a way, because obviously they need time to develop more women players to able to form 4 new clubs across 2 years. But also, the expansion rate is good as well. Like, the more NRLW clubs there are, the more, eventually the juniors can look up to having more NRLW clubs that have got more of an option if they choose to, and there'll be more pathways to go into those clubs.
Paul Gallen made this point, and I was listening to 2NUR earlier, and Paul Gallen, probably talking 100% footy last night, but he made the point of, I think I agree with this, he sort of warned about expanding too fast and too soon. Whether the pathways, as you mentioned, can cope with the amount of players that are getting turned over into NRLW players, And then that question of, we're talking 4 teams in 2 years. The risk of blowouts, I think, that has to be considered as well.
Blowouts as in like score blowouts? Or...
Oh, yeah.
I can see what Gallon is saying in that. The pathways, the women's pathways is not as big as what the men's is. But in saying that, the women, there are a lot more girls and women out there that are starting to play rugby league more often because there is a higher opportunity now than what there used to be, say, 5-6 years ago.
And I think as well, the other argument is, and I think this is probably the more relevant argument you've got to make, does the financial case justify this expansion and the introduction of a salary cap?
Look, I don't know, but I mean, the more women's games there are, the more people that are going to get their eyes onto the TV or go to games, which will bring more money into the competition alone. So that will be good in some ways.
The NRL last year made a profit that was north of $40 million. Now they're probably going to say, let's say, $350,000 goes to each of the NRLW clubs. So that would make about, what would that be, 1.8 million north of that? So say $2 million roughly to the NRLW's operational costs. Maybe a little bit more, or for other things as well. Membership, merchandising, which already a controversial in recent months regarding the NRL side of things. But a businessman could probably say whether the NRL is doing the right thing or not.
Well, put it this way. Parramatta is the first NRLW side to fill every single sponsored slot on their jersey and shorts. In their debut season. I'm pretty sure they said, or I heard, that Parramatta are the first one that fulfill every single spot on the jersey, sponsor-wise. So does that say that sponsors want to join NRL, but it's not enough NRLW, but it's not enough sides to put their name out there, if that makes sense? It has the pros and cons, put it that way.
Pros and cons, but I think I've probably told you in the past, it's an inevitability that there will be a 17, maybe, and I think realistically by 2027 it could be this way, an 18-team NRLW competition that takes the place of what the Holden Cup under-20s did up until about 2017, sorry.
Like one club have a NRLW side, like of the men's
like
side.
Make an event about going to the footy. You got the women that play first really early on in the afternoon. Then you have your reserve grade, whether that's not going to affect Cup or Intrust Super Cup, if they're still called Intrust. And then you have your NRL fixture across. Make a day of it. Lower your prices. I think this could be a win for all clubs if they want to boost their crowd attendance.
Definitely.
Make it because family's the big thing. Family's the big demographic that they want. And again, because they want the boys to play, they want the girls. They're now really pushing hard for the girls to play. We're going to reach a point, but we got to do it right. We don't want to rush this and turn it into something like the A-League-W where it's just doesn't get barely any greater coverage than the A-League does. That is my big concern.
I can see what you're saying there, yeah. But yeah, I personally would like to go to 3 games, like when the Holden Cup was around. I would like to go and see that, the reserve grade, then the main game. Or even coming up in Newcastle this weekend, you got the double header of the NRLW, then the men's game. I would go and see all 3 games.
Make a day of it. And clubs could be financially sustained more that way if they're getting more people through the door.
If you have more games on, you get more value for your money. If it's only just, like, say, the men's side, and say tickets are like $40, you don't really get your money's value because of the one game. But say you get tickets to $40 and you have 3 games, then you really get your money's value.
Something to consider, but I'm pretty sure the fiscally smarter clubs will be looking at this. I think the Broncos, the Roosters, and the Storm will probably be looking at this. But just on terms of expansion for 23 alone, which 2 would you have in and why?
What? Which two clubs in 2023?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say more than likely the Sharks and the Tigers coming into 2023. 2024, I'd say the Cowboys and maybe either South Sydney or Penrith. I'm not 100% sure which one of those two in 2024 alongside the Cowboys, but I'm probably going to say Sharks and Tigers for 2023.
So you say Sharks and Tigers?
In 2023, yes.
I think the NRL would be fools for not admitting the Rabbitohs next year. I think South Sydney should be in, and I think they would really want to milk the Rabbitohs-Roosters rivalry on two sides of the competition, both on the men's side and the women's side. And I think they probably want to do the same thing with the Cowboys as well. They want to do that both with the Broncos and the Cowboys. So I would say the Rabbitohs and the Cowboys, but I would still think that the Warriors would be the fourth team admitted in 2024. Or readmitted in their case.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right, now moving on, I think we had a bit of a side tangent with that, but it was important to note.
It was, yes.
Now moving on to the men's game, and the Penrith Panthers start their premiership defence off with a bang, running out 28-6 winners.
I personally wasn't expecting Penrith to win without Nathan Cleary, and I think a lot of people are in the same kind of situation.
Well, we were. We didn't really think... We thought this was going to be much more of an even contest, but spoiler alert, it wasn't.
Well, what Penrith did, they actually managed to shut down Turbo. They kept kicking out to the winners and not the Turbo.
And their line defence, the ruck speed, when Tommy got onto the ball, they just shut him down.
They definitely did shut him down.
They forced him sideways and didn't allow him any room to move.
No. Which they would have learnt from last
Melbourne.
season.
They learned that from Melbourne. And they developed the game plan first in the qualifying final last year, and Penrith have adopted it as their own.
Yes.
But I think this would really be the standard defence.
It should be. But Penrith to win and hit Manly at 6 points without Nathan Cleary, that's surprised
scary.
me the most.
That is scary.
We know last year when Cleary was out, Penrith didn't do as well. And I thought, based on last year, that would be...
Well, I had Tyrone May, so that was...
Yeah. But I also had Matt Burton then too, which I no longer have.
But on the defence, Manly just overchased. There were probably 3 tries that they scored, Penrith, including the Brian Toto try that was disallowed.
Yeah.
That they just simply overchased.
They did.
They could have stopped half of those tries from being scored, but they didn't. I think the Jerome Luai try and the one that Isaac Tago, that was just condemning.
That was condemning.
We're short, especially on Manly's right edge, where most of the damage is done to them anyway.
Yeah. Look, Penrith did really well.
And
I'd say Luai stepped up, and so did Cleary's replacement, Sean O'Sullivan.
O'Sullivan. For 2 left footers, but I suppose the Raiders already shut that. I was very impressed by O'Sullivan's kicking game.
He's had minimal NRL. He's had NRL experience, but not a lot.
To the same caliber as Luai and Cleary have.
Yeah.
But I got to say, Isaac Tago, for me, he was a standout for Penrith. Coming in to replace both Paul Momorowski and Matt Burton. And I thought he was ultimately destined for the right-hand side, but turns out Stephen Crichton had other ideas.
Yes, he did.
But for Tago, really transitioning into the centres from the back row, 1 try, 85 running metres, 7 tackle breaks, and I think this is the one statistic that he can boast about for the time being until somebody else does it. 1 folded Tommy Turbo.
Yeah, no one does that.
No one's folded Tommy Turbo in half. That's Twiggy Turbo right there. He just got snapped up right then and there.
He certainly did, and you don't see that often. And when I saw it, I was like, whoa, hello, what do we got here? Turbo getting cleaned up. And I say Tiger will have that tag for a long time.
The twig snapper, the turbo stopper.
Yeah.
That's actually Isaac the Turbo Stopper Tago. It's got a bit of a ring to it, don't you think?
I reckon it's a good ring to it, yeah. No, but good on him.
I'm actually proud of myself for coming up with that.
Yeah, and I applaud you.
But, so Penrith off to a good start, and it doesn't look like they're going to be troubled from this point onwards. Where did Manly go, though? Because they only managed one try in 80 minutes of football, and Tom Trbojevic did not have any room to move.
No, it did. So, Manly will have to see, well, try and pick out where the weaknesses were from round one against Penrith. I know Penrith are top side, but Manly were in the top 4 last year as well. So
Off the back of Tom Trbojevic. So
yes,
I think you're right. For Des Hasler, it's back to the drawing board, and it has to be a fast solution on that. Now,
well, I had to remember Manly were 4 last year and had that extremely
60,
good
then
run.
they turned it around to 16-4 at the end of it all.
So I wouldn't say they have to go back to a drawing board fast because they can turn things around based on last year, but this year is a whole different story.
It is. Now, shuffling things along, the Canberra Raiders, surprise, surprise, have a win in round one, down in the Cronulla Sharks 24-19.
Well, as you said last week, you said that the Sharks are Canberra's bogeys side. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Well, the Raiders have proved that wrong this time around.
Well, only just.
Just, yes.
This is a real back and forth battle right here. Of course, Canberra, they shot out to 3-try lead.
They did shoot out to a big lead, yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they shot out to an 18-6 lead, with the only try of the Sharks coming from the 2016 scrum play, but instead of Barber, it's Brayley.
Yes.
But it still looked pretty good.
Yeah, it was 18-6 at half time. So, yes. The Sharks did well to come back and to hit the lead, but it wasn't quite enough. Even though Matt Moylan with a field goal.
I would say, though, Nico Hines looked the goods just from that display alone.
He did.
Coming into the Sharks as one of the marquee signings from Melbourne, of all places, that's a lot of red flags are already thrown up there. But I got to say, I'd actually give him 8 out of 10 in the losing side for that performance.
He had a good performance. In that last trial match, he was a bit off, but he obviously did a few more things in training between the last trial and on Friday last week, and he turned it around.
I'm pretty sure 2 try assists, because I definitely know he had that try assist for Teague Wilton.
Yes,
And that beautiful short ball, though, and the perfect whole hit, really.
Yeah, it was set up beautifully there. And you would have liked that from, I'd say,
Cooper Cronk.
Cooper Cronk and in the Melbourne system there. So, and we all know what Melbourne have done over the last, 20 years?
Especially under Craig Bellamy. We'll touch on that shortly too. But the Canberra Raiders did one, so I often look to the winning side for the stand-up man. I'm going to go with the milestone man, Jack Whiten. 1 try, 148 running meters, 4 tackle breaks and a single offload, as well as starting off the chain play that set up the match-winning try for the Canberra Raiders.
Yeah, he did really well. And, yeah, like you said, he scored a try himself, and he improved the position for the Brad Schneider to take the kick. He's going, from what I saw from that game, he's gone back to how he was back in 2019. Yes.
Well, 2019, 2020, really.
Yeah. But can't read into it too much, obviously. Got done around.
No, you can't.
But it's a good start.
Some can, and that's their ill of choice. Things got... They did go on the skids in the second half. That's fair to say. When the Sharks came back, and you're thinking, oh, here we go. We've seen this story again. It's the 2017, 18, 21 Raiders all over again.
Yeah, we did think that, but they somehow pulled it out.
And I like the attitude as well. They could have set up for the field goal with 5 minutes to go, but Wyden gets the ball and he's just like, you know what? Screw this. We're going for the try. That's what you always want to do, especially when regardless of whatever stage, but just don't think field goal. Think you try and score a try.
Yeah. Also, when it comes down to the last 2 minutes and you're not going to get the ball back again for the rest of the game, then you think field goal. But because there's 3 minutes left to catch?
Yeah, close to it.
They could have had, if they didn't score, they would have had more than likely another 2 sets, you could say, of the ball to try and win the game. But that was a good thing about Jack Whiten. And getting back on Nico Hines, he had 1 try assist.
1 try assist. That was the Teague Will. But some of that ball movement from both sides, encouraging signs.
It definitely is. It looks like that both have improved on 2021 at this stage.
Well, we'll see how some of them back it up. Now, to one of the real shock upsets of round 1, the Brisbane Broncos down in the South Sydney Rabbitohs, 11 points to 4.
Look, we knew South Sydney were going to struggle without Adam Reynolds and Latrell Mitchell being absent, and Dane Gagai as well, don't get me wrong. But Brisbane without Adam Reynolds, because he was out due to something we're not allowed to mention.
The spicy cough.
Yes. I thought Souths were going to win, but no. They stepped up. The halves of Walters and Kelly.
Albert Kelly. Surprise,
They
surprise.
stepped up and fought through.
Really, the Rabbitohs, and I think this was mentioned in commentary on Channel 9, they just tried throwing the ball out too early. They weren't making a dent in the middle and then trying to shift it to an edge. Like try and, get Junior Totola and Cam Murray rolling through the middle and then binding Walker. They weren't doing that.
No. So as I say, you go hard. You go at the middle for 2. Then
you try and spread it.
And you try to spread it on the 3rd, 4th.
Or unless you want to try and bring it back to the middle.
Yeah. So you probably go up the middle for the first couple, then start going out wide a little bit. And then if you've got the opportunity further out wide, keep going for it. But if not, come back infield and put the kick across to the far side or whatever. So that's generally what I say. You go up the middle for the first couple of tackles.
And look, it's not as though the Broncos looked impressive. I mean, they did try and they set up one good try, and it was a very good offload from Kurt Capewell. But the fact that Albert Kelly was right up in the Rabbitohs attacking line, you could have sworn he was wearing red and green as well.
Yeah, you could have, to be quite honest. But we saw against the Roosters last year what Albert Kelly's capable of. And he kind of nearly showed what he did then again in this game. Which was be up in the faces and take control of the game.
2 men that stood out for me, and they were both members of the Broncos forward pack here. Why do I pick 2? Well, because I got editorial power. I can say 2 whenever or I can pick how many I want, but really, I couldn't leave either one of them out. First, ex-Broncos skipper Pat Carrigan, coming back from an ACL reconstruction and from round 9 last year, and really a solid effort. 190 run meters, 1 tackle break, 1 offload, and making 32 tackles in defence without a miss, really. And then, of course, the ever-reliable Payne Haas, 187 run meters, 3 tackle breaks, 4 offloads, and 45 tackles in defence. So between the 2 of them, more than 280 running meters, or 270, 4 tackle breaks, and 5 offloads, as well as 77 tackles.
Impressive
with
stuff.
rare miss.
Impressive stuff. Like Payne Haas has pretty much continued on his form from what he has when he first burst onto the scene. But Pat Carrigan coming back from an ACL injury, that's impressive.
Good start. He will be better for the run after that.
Yes. But good on him.
And we got to talk about that moment. That moment of absolute bizarreness that is just like, shit. Okay.
Pretty much.
And then, seriously, the Kurt Capewell field goal. How many times do we say front rowers' names and field goals? Or forwards' names and field goals?
Very little to none. I think it has happened in the past.
Yeah, hang on. I could have sworn I heard Nathan Kalis of Brayford Nasta trying to dial through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it must be white noise.
Yeah, no, but it was a well-struck field goal. He struck it beautifully.
And the fact that the Rabbitohs tried to rush him, because everyone thought, when I saw Jermaine Asaga standing there, it's like, oh, hang on, he could easily just fake the field goal, then he just burst underneath the sticks like he did a couple of times. And that's usually his pet play. Try and set up for the field goal, but if he doesn't like it, just run the ball and then try and cause havoc after that.
Generally, but South Sydney saw it, rushed up on him. Then he had offload to Kurt Capewell, who then kicked it. So, look, when I was heard capable of getting a field goal, I was like, wait, what?
I mean,
What?
I saw it happen.
Am
It was
I
like,
seeing this correctly, hearing that correctly?
I saw it correctly. He kicked the field goal. Like, from 20 metres out, it didn't look too bad.
No, it looked really good. It looked like it was a bloody half doing it. Like an Adam Reynolds or, a player that kicks field goals
Latrell Mitchell.
fairly often, yeah.
Oh, well, Latrell in special situations. But disappointment from the Rabbitohs, I will have to say. To be held to one try, I had really stripped the numbers as with Corey Oates going over. One try short of bringing up 100.
Yes.
And many people thought he wasn't going to start this year.
No, well, not on the wing anyway.
Or even in the NRL.
Yes, that's true. But Kevin Walters decided to put him in there, and he showed why he should be in the squad week in, week out.
Well, we'll see how far that goes with Kevy, because I think he's, amongst others, he's amongst the joint odds-on favourite to get at the sack early. Now, one man who won't be getting the sack as early as we thought, Adam O'Brien with his Newcastle Knights in the biggest upset of round one, downing the Sydney Roosters 20 points to 6.
I couldn't believe how well Newcastle played against a side like the Roosters. The Roosters are nowhere.
And they were full strength as well.
Yes. It's the women's curse starting to come across to the men's. The women lost, and the women's Roosters didn't start well, then that's done well.
I don't think we should really read into that too much, because the last couple of times the Roosters have lost a round one fixture, they've actually gone on to win the premiership.
That is true.
2018, 2019. I think actually even in 2013 as well, they lost and then they won the premiership.
As I say, based on history, Roosters have started slow and then come good at the
And then
back
they end up being the premiers. It's like, oh, the bloody Roosters are premiers again.
No, but seriously, that's what the Roosters have done for as long as I can remember from following rugby league.
The Tedesco try disallowed. Fair call, or do you think, really?
I think it's more the latter. I've been really, yeah.
Because they ruled that Connor Watson was impeding David Clemmer when Clemmer was trying to make that tackle on Daniel Tupou. I'm sorry, but who was exactly moving at more than 20 k's an hour and who was not?
Exactly.
Because the last time I checked, I'm pretty sure Tupou was moving a lot faster than Watson, and thereby, Watson was put onside by Tupou and was not obstructing. Clemmer could have made that tackle. But I suppose the NRL have got to make that ruling to say it was obstructing. But that really turned the Roosters round.
It did. I think that kind of hurt them a bit too.
And then Newcastle, from nowhere. I mean, if they didn't like what they were seeing on one side, they loaded up on the other side. That was practically their game plan.
That was.
They did not give Keary or Walker time and space to breathe, and it showed.
It showed, yeah. I had to say, Jay Clifford, he did an awesome performance.
Oh, I got to agree. And he's my stand-up for Newcastle. 1 try, 112 running metres, 5 tackle breaks, a goal line dropout, and 2 from 4 goals converted.
And he's, like I said, he scored a try himself. He was in amongst it all. And like I said, if it wasn't happening on one side, he was one of the players that shifted it to the other side of the field. And that...
And I was hearing in the commentary that this was the work of Andrew Johns.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Do you think Joey's hands were all over, or blueprint was over that win?
Possibly. I mean, since Jake Clifford joined from the Cowboys midway through last year, he's gone to another level.
Oh, they're kicking themselves, the Cowboys. They are genuinely kicking themselves.
Yeah, we've had Clifford go there, and before him, Ponner go to the Knights from the Cowboys.
Could Scott Drinkwater be next?
Who knows? No, but in all honesty, Clifford has stepped up his game since he's left the Cowboys mid last year, and it's shown again in round one. And having Joey there helps a lot too.
The right edge of Newcastle did a whole lot of damage. And David Clemmer, I don't know how he's done it, but do you think he's reinvented himself?
Probably a bit too early to tell from this first game. I have to give it a couple more games to see before I make a comment on that.
But Dominic Young, always got to be impressed with Dominic Young.
Yes. He didn't have a lot of game time last year when he came over from the UK. But he'll be a starting winner week in, week out.
Until Adam O'Brien decides to make a call. But at this rate, I would probably actually give Heimel Hunt some time in reserve grade just to build up some match fitness and give this absolute towering unit called Dominic Young, who hails from Huddersfield, the birthplace of rugby league, another crack. Because this is his 5th try in about 7 games?
Yeah, he scored a few in a short amount of games, so it's more than likely the case. He's got that potential in it. If you give Dominic Young game time, he's got that potential to be one of the top try scorers in the league.
I would be very careful.
It's a big call, I know, but give him game time. It won't be the best, but it'll be up pushing for one of the best.
You know, I'd be very careful if I was the Roosters' next opponent for the response, because Trent Robinson and the Roosters collectively will not be happy about the performance they put up.
No. They wouldn't be.
Now, from the cricket ground to the Sunshine Coast, and the Dragons getting up over the Warriors, 28 points to 16. That is St George Illawarra, because Catalan did play Wigan this week. But we'll focus on the NRL equivalent. We will focus on the NRL equivalent of Dragons and Warriors first, before moving on to the UK tomorrow. St George Illawarra had a couple of interesting choices, as well as backing in of some very rookie talent in Sloan and Amone, but from word go, looked like seasoned pros out there.
They certainly did, and that's probably, even in pre-season and even when I had game time late last year, they've pretty much slotted into the side very, very well. And like you said, they look like seasoned pros out there. They've got a full pre-season under their belt too, so that also is a benefit.
Especially with the select passing that Tyrell Sloan has developed. Of course, he lost out on being, was it the first NRL player in the NRL era to score 6 tries in 6 games?
No, I think the scorer try in 6 games.
The scorer try across 6 games, yeah. That's what I was trying to get at. But the select passing, first of all, that beautiful floater for Michaeli Ravawala to go into the corner first up.
I was going to say, which one?
Yeah, because I'll get to that.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I got to say, that short ball to send Jack Bird in underneath, penetrating the Warriors' right edge defence, that was also some good hands.
Yes, certainly was. He's a good young talent coming through. It's good to see that he's coming to the side and pretty much playing like he's been there for years.
Well, especially with Junior Amone, because he has been playing with him for years. And Jaden Sullivan.
Well, you just need to throw Jaden Sullivan to the side and you'll be right.
The Warriors, of course, attempted to mount a comeback, and at one stage were in charge. Especially if you get to the point where you get Adam Fanua-Blake going through some soft tackling and running 50 metres practically unopposed, despite not being able to run Sloan down. Or run over the top of him, I should say.
That was embarrassing. That's all I'm going to say.
For a Dragons man, embarrassing. For a neutral, i.e. Bulldogs Eels fan.
Yeah.
What garbage.
Pretty much. That was embarrassing, seeing Adam Fanua-Blake just go through the Dragons defence like that. That was...
The only thing that probably could have saved you, the misfielding that led to Dallin Watene-Zelezniak's try.
Yeah.
Just batted dead already.
Yeah, look, I think Ben Hunt and Tyrell Sloan were waiting for the ball to bounce out so they would get a...
Well, they fought wrong.
They get a 20-metre tap restart. But the bounce didn't go in their favour, and yes, the try was scored off that.
But I tell you what, the standout and the man who really went beast mode in this game, it was Michaeli Ravawala. 3 tries, 173 running metres, and 5 tackle breaks. And the third try, Sheskis.
Lomax flick pass. No-look flick pass.
The two no-look Gidley flicks that led up to that try with Sewer and then Lomax for Ravawala.
Yeah. Look, that Ravalawa-Lomax combination is going to be strong again this year as it was last year until Lomax got injured. It's a good combination there, and hopefully that continues on. But overall, the Warriors, they did come back a little bit and hit the lead, but
They lost out at the end of it, and
Pretty
their
much.
goal line defence it just broke with Moses Mbai jumping from dummy half.
yeah.
But their left edge got peppered hard.
And now they've lost a certain player, which we'll get to very soon. It's not going to help.
It won't help losing Sean Johnson, and we will find out who his replacement is very shortly. But other than that, a good start for St. George Illawarra. The question is, can they back that up against the Panthers?
But
I like that vote of confidence you've given them, but
well, we'll have to see what the team list looks like first.
so we'll see. But before all that, the Melbourne Storm, 20 straight round 1 wins, but they had to earn this 26-16 victory over the West Tigers.
Yes, Melbourne didn't have it easy. I'll tell you that, mate. Tigers put up a really, really good fight.
Well, when you lose the cheese within the opening minutes of the game to a hand injury, you lose a winger to an ACL injury after he scores a try, and then you lose your co-captain, Christian Welsh, with his second ACL injury in 5 years. So they were down to 14.
Was it Achilles? I think it was Achilles for Christian Welch.
But he's still out for the whole year, so...
Yeah, that's not what Melbourne wanted round 1.
Unideal. And I mean, they already had... Spicy Cough had already claimed Jesse Bromwich into isolation. Cam Munster was not available, nor was Harry Grant.
Or Chris Lewis.
But yeah, he doesn't really have a bearing on that. And they ran out with the unusual choice of Mick Meaney at 5'8".
Yes, they certainly did. But it worked out. Well, somewhat worked out. I mean, there were other options, but give the new recruit a shot and see how it goes. And he was the goal kicker.
And you were right. The Tigers gave Melbourne an almighty scare. Especially with Ken Mamalo. Just, whether it's just out the back play, quick hands, trying to beat the Melbourne right edge defense that's outnumbered, or even the Luke Brooks kick for the second try. How pinpoint was that kick for Ken Mamalo?
That was very, very pinpoint right there. But that's what Luke Brooks needs to do week in, week out, not just whenever he feels like it. It needs to be week in, week out. So the Tigers are finals bound, like
in the finals conversation.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. Not leave it at 1-2 against the Saudi, and that's it. That needs to happen week in, week out.
But Melbourne do what they do best. They dig deep and they fought back.
Yeah, well, when I saw the Tigers go out to Leeds, Melbourne will still come back, and sure enough, they did. So, but it's good to see the Tigers made Melbourne work hard for it. But as you said, they didn't have Munster, they didn't have Grant, they lost the Cheese, they lost Jennings, they lost Welch. So they were in a back foot when they lost those 3 players.
Ryan Pappenhausen, of course, stood up when it mattered most. I was providing some very good moments. Not tries, unfortunately, but it's only round 1, so we'll see how that goes. And the mullet.
Yeah.
But 109 running meters, 2 try assists, 4 tackle breaks, 1 offload, and really put this game beyond a shadow of doubt for the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah, he did certainly do that. I think he was carrying a slight ankle injury.
Hence why they brought Nick Meaney in, but he might be fit enough to take back the kicking responsibilities. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we have to wait and see what happens. They come pretty much game day.
As for the Tigers, is this more of the same, or is it...
Well, based on last year, they have improved. I'd say Jackson Hastings was a bit quiet in his first game. So was Oliver Gildart. So Tyron Peach was in amongst it all. Or somewhat in amongst it. Like I said, it's too hard to get a read to see if this is going to be going good for the Tigers or same old, same old.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But after what Newcastle put up, I have very big doubts. As for Melbourne, they're going to give Craig Bellamy his 500th win.
They,
Or have they already done that?
no, I think that's coming up
This week.
I believe. I could be wrong.
I think it is. But now, the highlights of the round. The Parramatta Eels and the Gold Coast Titans. The Eels running out 32-28 winners in a 60-point haul over 80 minutes.
Yeah, well, that was a try for try, goal for goal. Really, it was a really competitive match.
I think we have to talk about the controversies first before getting into that good stuff we like, scoring tries, and spectacular assists. The captain's challenge that I think Ray Stone made. Pivotal moment, arguing that the ball was kicked out of his hands.
Yes.
Do you believe that penalty should have been given? Or if that was just a straight knock on?
I personally think it was a straight knock on there. It was very, very touch and go. But I think it was a straight knock on there. I don't think there's any boot involved.
I mean, he placed it down on the foot, but there was no intent, really.
No, it wasn't intentional. And I think the argument was they put the ball down on the foot and then I can't remember who it was.
Trying to milk it.
Yeah. I can't remember who the Gold Coast player was that supposedly kicked it out. But the argument would have been he's kicked it out, but in all honesty, it could have been he was trying to get up to get back into the line or be the player marker. So, yeah, I think it was a straight knock on there.
And you're happy with the penalty for taking Clint Gutherson out?
Yes. I had to say that when I saw that, and they didn't give the penalty straight away. I thought, oh, sure, this has to be a penalty, and sure enough it was. So yeah, I'm happy with that. That was a fair penalty.
And then poor Patrick Herbert.
Oh.
Already copping all the jokes for basically knocking the Titans out of the finals last year. This time, a goal line dropout that goes 10 metres sideways and hits the corner post.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't fun. As soon as he booted it, he wouldn't have been happy with it. It didn't go 10 metres. It was lucky to go bloody 5 metres.
It went 10 metres sideways.
Yeah. But you don't see the ball hit the corner post very often. At all. Yeah, that was a bit unusual, but poor Patrick Herbert. His run of bad luck continues.
Sadly, though. And of course, the Sean Russell thing as well. I think he was 3 tries in, what was his third game? So he's got 5 tries in 3 games.
Something like that. He scored on a third, scored on a 7th, and scored on a 33rd minute.
But should Jaden Campbell get 3 weeks suspension?
Based on other situations similar to that, yes.
It's that inconsistency that plays the NRL.
Because we have seen it before, like you said, off air with Drew Hutchinson a few years back against, I can't remember who it was.
Dylan Brown.
Yeah, Dylan Brown. Dylan Brown got 3 weeks. Why did Campbell not get the same? Sean Russell had a punctured lung and broken ribs and was in hospital.
And it's the same story as Hutchinson. So that raises a question. Should the NRL be looking to get tougher on those order tackles?
Look, it's kind of where you put your body positions. Like, I know Sean Russell's going for the try, but depending on how the defender comes across as well. So I reckon they should come down a bit tougher, but happens more frequently, toughen it up a bit more. So they should do something about it.
But other than that, Parramatta, before all things dried up, that was a bloody good 40 minutes of football.
It was. They were in control from start to the halftime siren. They blew out to a decent lead.
That beautiful end-to-end play from both sides into the field. You had Parramatta, the second Sean Russell try, just off the upright, I don't know what Campbell was doing. He was ball watching, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you had Walker Blake come along. Toe it forward. Sean Russell gets a second try straight up.
Yeah.
And then you had the second Brian Kelly try from a Fafita burst.
Yes.
And then, of course, the Philip Sami try where he just did a Guffo on Guffo.
Yes. That was actually quite funny to see.
That was the best. That was probably an interesting sledging choice.
Yes. But Gutho could get his payback in a few weeks' time.
He could.
But
He
this
could.
time
Round
up on the
5.
Gold Coast.
Round 5, Eels Titans. So it'd be interesting to see if they can get the square up going. But other than that, apparently they're good mates as well. So
Yeah.
probably
so
a good laugh.
during a game, Gutho would have said, "Oh, piss off." But after it, they would have had a laugh about it, like, heat of moment.
Well, apparently in his own words, he said he was more annoyed by the fact that the Titans scored rather than the fact that his post-try celebration was used over the top of him.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
that's understandable.
good
too.
consistency for Parramatta. I think that's their 4th straight year they've won a round 1 clash.
I think so.
Dating back to 2019 when they beat the Panthers 20 points to 12. Oh, yep. So, good start, but I don't think the Titans would be overly disappointed by how they performed.
No, they wouldn't be.
They will feel like they were robbed, but they played pretty well.
They played really well for the Titans. I have to say, I don't know if that's momentum carried on from last season or not.
Well, it was starting fresh, so it couldn't be. But you got to give props to Big Tino Fa'asuamaleaui to play a full 80 at lock forward.
Yeah, that's a captain's effort right there. Usually lock forwards, as we know, get interchanged off not.
Well, they play upwards of an hour.
Yeah, they play a fair chunk of the game, but not the full 80 like Fa'asuamaleaui. That was a really good captain's effort right there.
And finally, the Canterbury Bulldogs, after 6 years in the wilderness, in the round 1 winner's circle, once again downing the North Queensland Cowboys 6 points to 4.
The lowest scoring game of the round, but in saying that, it was a really good game in periods. The Dogs
It was a
did really
very
well.
tight game. There really wasn't that much going on in this game. I think that could be stated with a capital S. This was
But-
a quiet game.
There was controversy again.
Go on.
Matt Duffy
All right.
and his try, I think.
Oh, yes. Now you got it on to me. What absolute bullshit. Where was the forward pass?
No.
I could see no forward pass. What I should have been seeing was a second try. They were already up 6-4 after a beautiful tap-on play down the right-hand side. Off with Jack Heverington play the ball. We should have actually won that game 12 points to 4 and actually be in the top 8.
If they got the conversion, which is pretty much right next to the post anyway, so, yeah.
No big deal for Matt Burton. He would have converted that. I mean, he kicked it right from the sideline.
Yeah.
20 metres in from touch.
Yeah.
But that was bullshit. That should have been a try.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That should have been a try. Bulldogs got robbed of a more comfortable win than what they had. But the Cowboys at the end was also a bit nervous with Dog Svensson and Hamiso Tipiwai Fodo.
Thank God he was actually judged to be offside.
Only just though. I could hear Connor from my place screaming at the TV saying, "Oh, what bullshit this is! That should have been
Hey,
a try."
whoa, hold up. Was this on the drone cam? Because I'm pretty sure, don't drones these days have a microphone that you can use?
Oh, possibly.
It's this radical new technology that certain club supposedly haven't really invested in before. I just can't put my finger on it where I've heard that one before about the use of drones.
I don't know.
Maybe a journalist should look into that. Maybe a journalist should clarify whether or not drones are used, or whether you were using a drone, because I don't think you got one.
No, I don't have one. I know someone who does, but no.
I'm pretty sure they posted a couple of pictures of it. Actually, very good aerial photography, but I think this this man might be a bit embarrassed by the fact he got egg on his face, to say the least. But nothing like trying to sledge somewhere else after you got found out.
I honestly don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm blank on what you're talking about. I've heard it happen, but I can't remember who you're pinpointing that at.
That's up to the audience to decide. Luke Thompson, when all was said and done, good energy off the bench, 130 running meters, 13 hit-ups, and 45 tackles. And I've got to mention Mitchell Moses for the Eels. 56 run meters, 3 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, and 6 from 8 goals converted. Really had his hand in all the tries. Well, the majority of them Parramatta did score.
Yes.
So,
have you got something for Luke Thompson? Because you talk about him a fair bit.
no.
He's just your favourite player.
Yeah, one of my favourite Englishmen to watch.
Yes, that's fair enough.
When it's not at St. Helens.
Yeah.
So where do the Cowboys go? Because the Taumalola Riffs refused to go away.
Look, something needs to happen. Either Tom needs to go to another club where he can play more minutes in the position that he's needed for, or the coach goes.
It'll be the coach that goes. I think Todd Payton is odds-on favourite to be sacked this year.
Taumalola is on a $1 million 10-year contract.
Which he's halfway through, so he's still got another $5 million to be paid out. And even Queensland legend Ben Teo came and said, yeah, no, something needs to happen. Either the coach goes or he goes.
That's pretty much, well, I couldn't remember who it was, but that's kind of what I was referencing too. But, yeah, Taumalola, the game has moved on since Taumalola was at his barnstorming best when he signed that $10 million 10-year contract.
Completely different.
But, in saying that, he hasn't played the full minutes that he used to play, and he's at lock forward, and you personally think he's better off on the edge? Is that correct?
No, I still think in the middle of the field.
No,
but...
in the middle, sorry. He gets played on the left edge or right edge sometimes.
Well, he was in the front row for this game.
Yeah. He's better off in the middle.
Yeah, so I have no clues where North Queensland go. As for the Bulldogs, character building win, I would have to say.
Well, I have to agree. The Bulldogs, with a fair few new recruits, they start off their season very, very well, which I'm happy about. So, and like I said, Bulldogs finished in the top 8 this year, so it's a good start.
Yeah.
Still 20 what?
You're really jumping the gun on that one. So
well, it's still 24 rounds to go.
We'll leave it on that. Now, shifting gear we'll move on to round 2 with the Melbourne Storm hosting the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Yes. So team changes. I'll do the away side first. I'm correct if I'm correct in saying that, as per normal.
Yep.
We've got Latrell Mitchell back at fullback, and Tarvey's still out with an ankle injury. So with Latrell Mitchell back, Johnston goes to the wing, and Mansell moves to the reserves, and that is pretty much the same side as last week.
As for the home side, of mass changes they've had to make with George Jennings, Christian Welsh, and Brandon Smith all ruled out with injury. Some for the rest of the year, others only up to 5 weeks. Dean Iramia comes onto the wing in place of Jennings. Cameron Munster and Jesse Bromwich are both back in the side alongside Harry Gray. And in the 5'8" and in the front row respectively, Nelson keeps his starting position there. And I believe Alec McDonald has been included on the bench as well for Craig Bellamy's side, with Nick Meaney dropping to the reserves.
Yes, which is a bit of a surprise there for Nick Meaney.
Or he might have been in the side last week.
Who, Alec McDonald?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's off the bench last week.
All right, so second gamer retained.
Yeah.
This is really concerning for South Sydney. Even with Latrell Mitchell coming back, they have not had a good record in Melbourne whatsoever.
No, they are coming up against a strong side too. They had to basically come back from behind to win that match. They did it the tough way, Melbourne, last week. But they have got almost a full-strength side yet again. But well, it's going to be probably a full-strength it's going to get for this season with Welch and Jennings out for the season. And Brandon Smith been out for a few
I
months.
think Cameron Munster will have a big point to prove, and I think it's going to show here. I think they'll try and sort out the aerial contests first of all, and I think they'll really have to stiffen up their right edge defense. And again, and considering in the fact that the right is always like to be pet. But other than that, I think Melbourne are going to be in for a better performance, and especially at home with Craig Bellamy in his 500th game there. So I got to say the Melbourne Storm will run out 13+ winners over the South Sydney Rabbitohs, but I really got no hope in South whatsoever. And Mark, who's unfortunately just had to step out the door for a moment, also reckons Melbourne will get home against South 7 points to 12. Now, moving on to the second game of round 2. It is the St. George Illawarra Dragons at home to the Penrith Panthers. Only one change really for the Panthers. Spencer Leniu replacing Moses Leota up front, and Matt Eisenhuth getting a recall for Ivan Cleary's side. Whilst for the Dragons, Aaron Woods has been ruled out with injury, so Frank Molo has been named in the front row, with George Burgess included on the interchange. Andrew McCulloch wearing the number 19 jumper in honour of St. George legend Norm Provan, who will be remembered at this game. Really, I'm looking at this, and this is going to be an interesting contest to factor into this equation here. On the one hand, you've got the defending premiers, who just tore apart a top 4 side without breaking a real sweat, to be quite fair, of this moment, against St. George Illawarra, who are up against the perennial chokers in the New Zealand Warriors. I mean, how many seasons have they actually had that were good? Now, according to Rugby League history, they've only made the finals less than 8 times in 24 seasons in the NRL era, so that's not a good winning record there. I would really have to judge the Panthers' line speed here, because that will be a big thing. Hunt versus O'Sullivan, and how much Penrith can shut down the big guns of the Dragons pack. Weighing up the options here, and I'm pretty sure, Mark would be wanting to. Well, who am I kidding? He's a biased, red-eyed supporter, so I would probably think he backs the Dragons in here, and I'd probably think he will do it a tight margin. I'd probably say he'd back him in 1-6, because I don't think he's going to really last with the Panthers in a high-scoring affair. Is that right? The Dragons in a tight contest to down the reigning premiers.
Look, sorry about that, guys. Look, it's going to be a tight contest. It's going to be a game where the Dragons will honour Norm Provan. I do have to say Penrith will put up a decent fight like they did in round 1 against Manly. Well, actually, they destroyed Manly. I'm tipped the Dragons to win this one. I'm going to say in the 7-12 margin.
7-12?
7-12.
I'm going the Panthers 1-18. Now, shifting gears to the main event, Friday night on the 50th anniversary of the 1972 Grand Final, it is the Sydney Roosters up against the Manly Sea Eagles. One change for Des Hasler's side. Tolutau Kulo has been relegated back to the reserves, with Dylan Walker promoted to the interchange bench in really the only one change Des Hasler has made to his side.
As for the Roosters, Ragley and Billy Smith have been named, besides copping head knocks. They'll be monitored during the week under the concussion protocols. Jared Waweru-Hargraves has been named to start, but may swap with Fletcher Baker, as they did last week. And otherwise, an unchanged side.
As I said, I think Manly, they got found out, and realistically, they could go 0-2 here, because I think what you saw from the Roosters was not what we expect of the Roosters.
No, not at all.
I'm expecting a massive turnaround in the Roosters' performance.
Well, same with Manly, you could say, because if Tonta Vorjevic doesn't get shut down and he gets into open space, he could cause some trouble too. So it could be a battle of the fullbacks right here. That's what I'm saying. So let's go to Vorjevic battle of the fullbacks.
if Manly don't tighten up their defence, it's going to be another cakewalk. But other than that, I think Tedesco will lead the Roosters to a 7-12 victory.
Look, I'm gonna go Seagulls to win. In a 1-6 margin.
And yeah, I definitely think the Roosters will finally click into gear here, as they should have done against Newcastle. Oh, but didn't get the chance. Now, moving on, the Gold Coast Titans at home to the New Zealand Warriors.
The Warriors have got Reece Walsh back and Matt Lodge back. Harris Savita goes into 5'8" with Cody Nicaragua dropping out. Vailea, Watani Zalesniak and Sean Johnson are out, with Jesse Arthurs coming in at centre, Pompey coming on to win, and Taylor at halfback, and Bunty Aflalo going to the bench to accommodate Matt Lodge starting in the front row, and Burdock Masila going to the reserves.
A couple of changes for the Gold Coast. AJ Brimson will be in the lineup and will partner Toby Sexton in the halves. Will Smith moving back to the interchange, and Tana Boyd on to the reserves.
The Warriors did well against the Dragons. They just couldn't quite finish it off. But the Titans was really impressive against Parramatta last week.
I got to agree. I'm expecting a response out of the Gold Coast, especially at home. And really, David Fafita against Ewan Aiken, it's a no contest in the battle of the second rowers.
No, it's not. Because Ewan Aiken's only new to the side and it's not as big.
New to the position. But
yeah,
I think if Fafita and Tino get a roll on, the Warriors, even with Ua Blake, remember, these ties got towelled up 44-0 last time they met out. And I think at home, the Titans will look to try and get a right the ship. And I was very impressed with last week. I'm going to go with the Titans 7-12.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm going to go to Titans 7-12 as well. They looked the better side. They played that bit better against Parramatta.
Now, speaking of Parramatta, they're in action again against the Cronulla Sharks at PointsBet Stadium. Now, of course, with no Sean Russell, the Eels are really suffering an injury crisis of wingers. So Waka Blake has been moved from the centres to the wing. Tom Opacek now gets his first game of the year. With no Ryan Madison, Oregon Kafusi moves into lock forward, with Bryce Cartwright and Nathan Brown on the bench, with Jake Arthur back to the reserves.
Put it this way, Sharks have named the same 1-17. Although Cameron McInnes is amongst the reserves and Connor Tracy are also nearing returns as well.
This is the Sharks' first home game at Cogra in 3 years? Yeah, 3 years.
3 years.
They've been at Cogra for the last 2.
Yeah.
So this should be a real homecoming celebration for the Sharks.
I'm going to say packed out. PointsBet Stadium will be packed out.
All black, white and blue. It'll be a sea of black, white and blue all the way to the
Saturday evening game, it's family-friendly time. It's like family-friendly game day as well. So it'll be packed out. Absolutely packed out.
I think with Nathan Brown on the interchange, the moment he comes on, you'll see the line speed of the Eels' attack really kick up. And I think Parramatta, if they convert their first half performance against the Titans into the second half, I think they will really trouble the Sharks, especially through the middle. Not so much the edges, because they're really lacking strike weapons at the moment, but I still think they can do a good job, and I expect the Eels to get home 1-6.
Yeah, I reckon Eels will do this. Get over the top of the Gold Coast, over the Sharks, sorry. Also in the 1-6 margin.
And now jumping on ahead to the north, it's the Cowboys back at home again, this time hosting the Canberra Raiders.
Canberra, they have got Matt Frawley at halfback with Brad
Schneider
out into
spicy cough.
Yeah, spicy cough, yeah. Tom Starling is in for Josh Hodgson, who is expected to miss a fair while with a knee injury. And Adrian Trevelyan could make his debut off the bench.
As for the Cowboys, Jordan McLean lifted into the starting side. Jeremiah Nanai and Tom Gilbert retained in the second row, with Taumalolo moved back into lock forward. And still with Scott Drinkwater on the reserves, as with no Jermaine Tanoa Brown.
Interesting.
And Cohen has also been and move to the starting position as well.
Look, it's unfortunate that Brad Schneider's out because he did pretty reasonable in his first NRL game.
Yeah.
I would have thought Sam Williams would have got the start over Matt Frawley, but Ricky Stewart obviously knows better.
The Cowboys are just asking for trouble at this point.
Well, with no Jermaine Tanua-Brown as well, that's going to not help their cause as well. I'm going to say Raiders 13+.
The turnover of halfbacks at the Raiders is concerning. Lost Fogarty, no O'Schneider now.
No.
I think the Raiders, if they keep their same mindset they had in the final 20 minutes like they did against the Sharks, I think they will get home, but I don't really see a dominant performance. I think they'll still score more tries than the Dogs, but not really controlling. I think this will be a 1-6 margin for the Raiders.
There you go, and I've already said mine, Raiders 13+.
Now, of the Sunday games, it is the Newcastle Knights up against the West Tigers. James Tarmo, captain number 4 on deck for the Tigers, who starts in the front row with Alex Twal pushed back to the bench and Luke Garner to the reserves in the changes for Michael Maguire.
Adam O'Brien, 17, with Daniel Saifiti being named amongst the reserves, and he's missing at least another week.
I would give Daniel Saifiti all the time he needs. And after what Newcastle did against the Roosters, I'm not really wanting to change that side at the moment.
Well, no, and come up a Tigers side that is a bit weaker than what Knights are. The Tigers did put up a fight, but the Knights did that. It was way better than what the Tigers were.
If they play the same way the Knights, they're going to crush the Tigers. I'm going to call this a Newcastle 13+ victory.
I have to agree with you there. First home game in a long, long time. It'll be packed out against a side that on a Sunday afternoon footy in Newcastle. What else could you want? It'll be packed out. Newcastle 13+.
And finally, of round 2 is the Canterbury Bulldogs up against the Brisbane Broncos.
Adam Reynolds returns in the side to make his Broncos debut. So Albert Kelly goes from halfback to 5'8". Billy Walters goes to the bench and Tyrone Roberts is out of all together. Tessinu is taken over from fullback from Jermaine Asako.
As for the Bulldogs, the likes of Burns, Naden, Marshall King have all been named in the side, provided they can beat concussion protocols. Luke Thompson returns to the starting front row position after being swapped over the bench for Siamana Fanai. And Tabita Pangai Jr. hopefully will actually start in the second row for his Dogs debut against his former club.
This will be an interesting contest, to be quite honest with you there. Brisbane put up a good performance against South Sydney, and the Dogs should have had more points, but they didn't. But they'll be looking to get that, and you could say, anger to power them through this Broncos side to win this match, just to get that anger out from not getting that last try from Matt Duffy.
Adam Reynolds is a big thing. I think this is a big thing because now this is the Broncos an extra dimension in attack. But I don't know how he's going to go after a week with the spicy cough, because that's usually the question of how they're going to recover.
Well, yes, so...
Well, I mean, Nickel Klukstad did all right. I mean, he scored a try on return after being stuck in isolation for the final trial game, but not everyone can recover as fast as others.
No, and everyone recovers differently,
I'm actually going to call for the upset here. I think, even though the Dogs weren't at their best, I think character-building defence is what got them through that game, especially in the touch-and-go moment of the Tabuai Fido try. Yeah, I'm going to call the Bulldogs 1-6 here.
Look, you've read my mind. I'm picking the Bulldogs as well. I like what I saw in round 1. I know there's still work to do. It's going to be a tough game for both sides. It's going to be a physical game, I reckon, up in the pack. I'm going to have to agree with you there. Bulldogs 1-6.
And on that note, this has been your NRLW U3-4 and NRL Round 1-2 debrief. Don't forget to give us a follow on social media. It's Sideline Chat at Facebook and Instagram, and Sideline Chat RL on Twitter. Hope you enjoyed this presentation today, but don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow with the Betfred Super League Round 5-6 debrief. We will see you tomorrow.
Yes, we will.